Hello, my name is Parmendra Sharma. I am the Program Director of Pacific Islands Center for Development Policy and Research. I'm here in Suva this week to have a conversation with the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji, and the conversation is going to be on Esala Masitabua, who is the Deputy Governor, his views on how things have been in terms of Reserve Bank of Fiji's collaboration with Griffith University and with PICDPR, and his views on what the challenges might be for Fiji in recent times. Bulavinaka Deputy Governor Esala Masitabua, Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of Fiji. Welcome to this conversation with PICDPR. Of course, PICDPR is Pacific Islands Center for Development Policy Research. The forerunner to this, of course, you might know, was the South Pacific Center for Central Banking. The idea of both the programs has been to help develop capacity for research and policy making here in the Pacific region, and helping, of course, the research and policy making institutions do that. With the South Pacific Center for Central Banking, the focus was mostly on the central banks, as you can gather from the title, the name, and the South Pacific. But the governors have always been encouraging us to extend the program because they found it very useful. They said it could be benefit to others in the region as well. And so earlier this year, we have rebranded the program. It's called PICDPR now. The overall objective, goal, mission, whatever you might call that, has been to help develop capacity, as I was saying. And so with the change in the name, we have adopted a 4-pillar program approach to this. And we are going to continue with the joint working papers we have always done. That has been a core of the program. Then we have training and development, again, to provide training for the joint working papers, really. Then we have project-based activities and global visibility of what we are doing in the region here, and also to showcase for the region and the central banks and others the capacity they are building in terms of research that is going to lead to policy making. It is in relation to this last pillar, global visibility, that we are here today to talk about how it has been, how the journey has been for the Reserve Bank of Fiji, which was the founding member of or partner of our program. And they have been with us for a few years now, of course. So the questions that I was going to ask you, Deputy Governor, were really to find out how things have been for the Reserve Bank of Fiji so far. But before I go into those questions, let me start with something else. I do understand that you are, of course, I'm from Griffith University. I've studied there, and I understand that you are also an alumnus of Griffith University. You may have been there a while ago. So let me start with that, and for you to tell us a little bit about your experience there and how why you decided to go to Griffith before I go to the other questions.
Yes, thank you, Parmendra, and thank you for this opportunity. So everyone has their story around. The Reserve Bank is full of graduates, people that have achieved academic achievements. So my story and my association with Griffith goes something like this. So when I left school in 1988, I come from a family of 3. So my sister I was the middle child. So my sister started work, and at that time, it was easy if you had good marks to just rock up, get an opportunity to work in the bank. The commercial banks were always looking for fresh talent. So my family decided that my sister will work and support the other 2 siblings, and when it was my turn, I would go and achieve academic achievements to make my family proud. But when I saw my sister earning money, I thought to myself, I don't want to study, I want to go and work and earn money. So I decided not to go to USP because that was the idea baseline back then. I wanted to work. So I ended up working for 2 years. After 2 years, that urge to study, I couldn't, and to achieve, some academic, because I was, achievements started to take a hold of me. And at that time, I came across uh, advertisement. At that time, the Australian scholarship used to be called ADEB, and it was called ADEB EMSS, Equity and Merit. So they tried, when they gave out scholarships, to be balanced across gender, and that was way back in 1990, and balanced across ethnicity. So I said, okay, I gave a good chance here. And then you would fill out the form in a paper. It came out a one-page ad in the newspaper. And when you fill out that form, they told you that they have like 200 real application forms. So once you go past, you fill out that form in the paper, put your qualifications, the minimum documentation, you send it off to the embassy or to Australian embassy. And then they will shortlist from there, and they will send out 200 application forms. This is what I was told. And so if you see an application form coming into your box or your mail address, you know you've achieved that first cut, and your chances are high that you would get a scholarship. But in that form, you had to specify the area of study, which must not be available locally, and the institution that you wanted to be in. So this is all my thinking. I thought, okay, I need to maximize my chances, so I needed to pick a university that had a high chance of saying yes to me. So I was standing in the Australian embassy. That time, their branch used to be up at Dominion House, and they had bookshelf full of handbooks from all the universities in Australia. 1990, before internet. So I looked and I saw University of Queensland, big one, no. University of New South Wales, no. Because I knew that a lot of us in that 200 will be competing for spaces there. And I didn't have the confidence that I would be in the top percentile. So I looked down and I saw Griffith University. No idea what Griffith University, where it was. And I said, this is the university, because I've never heard of it. And I picked it up, and it said it was a relatively new university. And if you get accepted by so that 200 applications came through, and the embassy would send out your applications to the universities, and they would get back acceptances from the university saying, yes, we accept this person. Then from there, they will do their shortlist. So that's the story of how I ended up in, and it happened to be Queensland, which, the weather, I heard at that time, they said, like, if you go to Queensland, it's not too far down if you look across from Fiji. So, and of course, the Queensland is the state of the mighty maroon, so it made no sense. So, yeah, so that was my story, and ended up in Griffith. Yeah? So the downside of it, unbeknownst to me, La was studying, one of our staff here, La Koka, and Kalisi was studying at University of Queensland. Much later I found out there were a whole lot of foreign students there, but the downshot of what I did was I ended up in a university all alone. I didn't have any support structures around me, no Fijian students, and it was a pretty torrid time. I was so homesick. I think the first semester I flopped all my subjects because I was just depressed and wondering why on earth did I want to go abroad and study. So after the airplane ride and the ride to the airport, I was really, really regretting that decision. But with the support of my family, I was able to knuckle down and in university it's so important having support structures, like people you bounce ideas off and help each other, group work. So as I shared with you, I frequently, because I'm also a very introverted person, I can't make friends easily. So often when there's group work, I would find myself asking my lecturer if I can do that assignment alone, because I couldn't make friends. Once they say this is your group assignment, you see the whole class start looking at each other, and we group together. And poor old me sitting down there, I have no one wants to be in my group. So I would go and ask the lecturer if I can do it on my own, and he or she would tell me the reason it's group work is because it's not enough for one person. And I said, no, I'm willing to take that chance. So that was the downshot of selecting Griffith, but I enjoyed my time there, and of course, as we will go on and talk about how Griffith came about, I was really proud that my alma mater had come around to be, one of that the Reserve Bank was associated. So somehow, all that blood, sweat, and tears on Nathan campus, on Dewey Forest, and then I came to, be associated with Griffith again in this collaborative work is something that fills me with enormous pride.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Governor. And that very naturally takes us to one of the first questions I have here for you, and that is, how has this partnership with the Griffith University's PICDPR has been in terms of developing capacity for research and policy making for the Reserve Bank? Would you like to make a comment on that, please?
So, Parmendra, it's been a very rewarding journey. It goes back to, as you would be aware, to 2012. I think if I cast my mind back, I remember being in the head of FI, CMFI, and the governors at that time had referred banking symposium. It's a collaborative approach between USP and Griffith University. So the governor at that time and deputy governor said CMFI will go, and I think the CEO of ANZ and Bank of Baroda also spoke at that symposium, very modest symposium. And then I looked and I saw it was Parmendra. And of course, I know you from Reserve Bank, and being a supervisor when I started my career in 97, Parmendra was one of the senior bank examiners at that time. So I went along, and after that, then I found out that you had made an appointment to meet the governors, and we sat at the boardroom, and you outlined this plan of capacity building. And it was so fortunate that the governor and the deputy governor at that time were both former chief manager of financial institutions, Barry Whiteside and Inia. So they were both very supportive. I mean, relationships are important in the Pacific. So once you know someone, it just across the world, but in Pacific we rely a lot on relationships. So I think that was the starting point of this journey. And then, of course, when our current governor became deputy governor, then things really started to take off, because he was just he's placed a lot of emphasis on the work supporting research. Yeah? So, and we had commenced in 2004, I think, with an initial joint working paper that was co-authored by, you can enlighten us on which one was, yes, 2014. And in 2015, we had the support of the Australian government, the Fed, and we had a team that had gone there, and similar to something that we are currently doing. But we had the Australian Awards Fellowship Program, and then we had the governors who also met in Brisbane, and they agreed they all agreed on the direction of what Griffith was intending to do in terms of capacity building and building up the rigor of academic rigor of research within the central banks. So that's the genesis of this collaborative partnership. As I've mentioned, it's been a rewarding journey. We'd like to, I'd like to acknowledge your contribution in it, as I've done on so many occasions. I think relationships matter, and your association with the Reserve Bank and with the region is something that that has really been pivotal in this partnership. So strengthening the research capacity, I think in the terms of the results, we've produced 9 working papers, 4 of which went on to be published in reputable journals. And there's also a wide range of engagement activities with the researchers have indulged in. And at the macro level, this partnership has continued to strengthen. Now we've collaborated across the region. And at present, we have 10 working papers that our staff are co-authors with, and I'm sure that we'll be meeting them after this. And then we continue to benefit greatly from this collaboration.
That's great to know. So the program has been useful and beneficial. So that's something that I will take away from this conversation for my colleagues. I understand that Reserve Bank and other policy-making and research institutions here in the region would have some sort of partnership with other capacity-building organizations and institutions. But RBF and others wanting to work with us seems to indicate that there were some things that they would not be able to find or able to get with the other institutions. What I am talking about here is that there might have been some distinct or unique or something distinct and unique about the partnership, and there might have been some gaps that were not fulfilled by other capacity building institutions. Would you like to make a comment on that, Deputy Governor?
So, thank you, Pramen. I think we, as central banks, one of the great advantages of working for the central bank is the training opportunities, as you would be aware. And we are the only central bank in the country, so the only place that we could go and train is abroad, where you have institutions or agencies like IMF, ADB, or AFI recently, Financial Inclusion, that's able to pull people together and train them. So I think from my experience of going to IMF, I've been to STI a few times on various trainings. There's sort of this assumption of this research element that it already resides. So you come in and they just teach you the practical part of it. And I think that academic rigor, that if you were doing, if you were analyzing something in the academic, in a university, it would probably be different. We always talk about policy, practicality of policy, and the ivory towers of academics. But somehow there's some, there's middle. The rigor that academics look at things is different from how we look at it. So there's the gap is how we bridge that divide so we can achieve some sort of rigor in analyzing issues. I think that's important for transparency, for public to gain credibility in our policies. So we need to demonstrate that more and more. And two factors that I think weigh on the research capacity in a central bank. I think one is Suva. We always seem to lose staff, so we are constantly training. So building up capacity is a challenge. As you're aware, this program that we've had, we've already lost some of our leading researchers. We have some good ones coming through, and I always look at departures as an opportunity, because there's always an opportunity for the next person to step up, just like a rugby team. Somebody, the star goes down, the opportunity is there for someone to step up. But at the same time, it just underlines the challenges we have in building that sustainability. And the other thing is, I think with policy, often, there's a saying that goes like there's more when it comes to policy making, or well, I use that example in policy making, that there's more lost to indecision than making the wrong decision. Yeah? So a lot of us would be aware in central banks, you can't wait for perfect information. If you wait for perfect information, you're dead. Sometimes you have to make policy on the fly. So bringing in that, so I think this is one of the challenges we have when we want to build, the level of rigor that you normally would see in other papers. The data is not there. Making decisions, I think there was a paper once done by IMF for making policy decisions on imperfect information. You just try and read the tea leaves, because these are cost in decision. If you're late, So I think these are the challenges we have, and the collaboration with learning institution, which has the reservoir of people who are academically inclined and who are so used to that academic rigor, and bringing them together with with the policy makers who are suffering from turnover, who need to make decisions on imperfect information. That's where this benefit, that's where the gap is, and that's how we can collaborate on and try and churn out some of these research articles, these research pieces that will help guide our future direction of future policy.
Thank you for that. So it seems what you're saying is that what a central bank or a research institution would have liked was some sort of a systematic, scientific approach to research. Yeah. And it seems that Griffith University, through the PICDPR, has been able to provide that avenue for the central bank. People are also saying that, I've heard them say that what we are doing here for the region is basically a truly regional model. A lot of other capacity building institutions and others may talk about a regional model, but I'm not sure about those ones. But this one here, would you like to make any comment on that one, that this is really a truly regional model?
Well, it is from my perspective. I mean, we've see that meeting I alluded to. You had the governor of all the central banks in the Pacific or South Pacific region as we know it. So we had Vanuatu, PNG, Solomons, Timor-Leste. I think Governor Barao was there too, Fiji. So, from the very first MOU which we signed, Reserve Bank, and slowly it has expanded. And I feel that's also a testament to Fiji's leadership in the region, that people do look up to Fiji, and it's a testament to those that have preceded us, who have brought us along to this standing where most of the other central banks look up to Fiji, and that's something that we assist them with. So whenever there's requests to come and do study visits here, we're always open. And once Fiji was in, and PNG, and then it just snowballed. And I think you also, by expanding or rebranding this to, what do you call it? South. Yeah, so we are expanding it beyond central bank. So I think that's going to make it really, truly regional, because we have Micronesia, which doesn't have central banks. But I understand that they are also interested in joining. I think Palau and Marshall Islands, and I think so. By expanding to Micronesia, then you'll probably be rivaling something like BEFDEC in terms of the reach, right across the length and breadth of the blue ocean, or the greatest South Pacific Ocean.
Yes, so since the rebranding, Republic of Marshall Islands Office of Banking Commission has joined our program, as well as Palau's Ministry of Finance and Solomon Islands Ministry of Finance too. We're hoping to reach out to the Ministry of Finance here, Ministry of Economy rather, here in Fiji, and the central banks which are still not our partners. These are central banks of Samoa, Tonga, and others in the region. The idea is to get everybody on board so that we all also can interact with each other. We have recently created a Teams group for the region, and this is going to help us all talk to each other whenever we like to interact with each other as much as we can. What I would like to ask you next is, where do you see this partnership going with the Griffith University in the next 5 to 10 years? I'm sure that you will stay with us for the next 5-10 years, but yes, your comments on that, please.
Thank you, Brahman. I think from what I described, the challenges, the gaps we're trying to fill, and as an institution, we continue to try to improve or to scale up our ambition on academic rigor or the capacity for research. So it's going to be an ongoing issue. I think the collaboration, I can see it continuing, for the next, at least for the foreseeable future, for the next 5 to 10 years. I think our priority right now is to complete the research papers. I think COVID has hit us, set us back, everyone. And I think the research, if not for COVID, we probably would have produced a few more research pieces.
On that point, I should let you know that among all the partners that we've been working on with the Reserve Bank is far ahead of the others in terms of publishing working papers as well as journal articles. So we have 4 journal articles with the Reserve Bank. That's a great achievement. Sorry, please go on.
And I think as we go forward, I think the challenge for us is to start to really pick topics that can inform or that's more relevant, increasingly relevant to policy making. I think, even in the working papers that we produce, I think if you go onto the RBA website, I think that's where we should aspire to be. And you just click on their link of working papers and you see the titles, it just catches your attention. I think I'm struggling to remember, but and they do research or working papers that you can easily see how it will translate into a decision paper for policy, and then going to the board, and in various pieces, and I think that's the challenge for us, or that's the aspiration for us, is to achieve that stage where we can have this collaboration, have a pipeline of talent coming through, the training capacity, that we can have very confident researchers and economists, and collaborating across the platform to the region with PNG has a strong research. They do a lot of work with CSEN. The involvement with CSEN on research is which is something that we couldn't do because we are just so small compared to to be able to release resources for 3 months on research is just beyond us. So I think that's where we hope to be, that we will continue to refine our topics for research and continue to lean on that collaborative effort with Griffith, and bringing in the academic rigor and trying to churn out these pieces that will inform our policy making.
I'm glad you made that point, because that has always been our intention. We wanted to do research that was going to be different from the research that academics do. That is mainly to publish in journals, and that's key KPIs for academics. In our case, the difference was going to be that our papers were going to have clear policy outcomes. We have been trying to do that, but hopefully very soon it will be the link between the research and the policy will become much clearer. And again, as you've been saying, yes, we need to be more careful about the topics we select, we would like to do together, so that in the end there is going to be policy outcomes. And in talking about the policy outcomes then, so we would like, maybe we could talk about that now. So maybe we could talk about the three most important policy challenges for RBF in this post-COVID environment, and then that will lead to how we could help with that one then.
Thank you, Parmendra. So I think the immediate challenge right now is recovering from the pandemic. I think, presenting the economic, I was doing a presentation to the Australian business people, and I mentioned that, one of the slides here, that we've definitely have considered that the pandemic is behind us. It's not gone, but nothing could be worse than, if we cast our minds back to 2020, 2021, where there was almost half the workforce that just laid off. 40% of the tourism industry was just shut down. So 40% of the economy was just turned off like a light overnight. And they were suffering. There was lockdown. So I think to come from that to challenges, the headwinds that we are facing with inflation and all, it's tough. It is really tough. But it's like nothing could be tougher than what we endured back then, especially when you try to look forward, prospects looking forward, and you couldn't see anything. We couldn't see how in the first few months of the pandemic that tourism could come back the state it was now. We thought people will be so reluctant to travel because they would just, because of COVID. And we couldn't see how buffet stations would look like, so tourism as we know it, we thought was totally out the window because of the challenges that the pandemic threw at us. And then you had people leaving the resorts, going into other sectors. So the challenge right now, because we have contracted by more than 17%, is just coming back. So the priorities right now is debt, putting debt to GDP or the government debt back on a sustainable path, which already started with the budget that was announced. So those are the immediate priorities, enabling, making sure that as we go forward, there's sustainable and inclusive recovery. There's a lot of scarring, there's a lot of pain and suffering that the country has endured, while tourism is up, and there's optimism all around, and there's economic activity, consumption, and all that's signifying that we are on the path to recovery. It's important that we make sure that it's sustainable. So looking at debt, diversification, we talked about ensuring that the tourism, we don't rely as much on tourism sector, so that diversification and debt is a key part, and also building our human resources within the country. That's also all these challenges that we are confronted with as we as a result of the pandemic. So this is the key challenge for us. The other one is climate change. I think climate change taken a bit of a back burner, but climate change is definitely a challenge. And maybe finally is as a result too of the pandemic, the escalation on digital and digital currency and all those work from home, and the improvement that we're seeing with communications and digital, and also the challenges that we continue to face with loss of skills. I think this is the policy challenges that the country will face and definitely the Reserve Bank.
I'm sure that we could think about this or look at this more closely, these things that you have just mentioned, to see how we could start some collaboration research on those topics. And I'm sure also that we will be able to help the researchers from the central bank here or other research or policy making institutions to get it to a stage where it could have policy outcomes. So any last comments, words on that, how you see that happening?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think we need to be more targeted in, to now that we've identified some of the challenges that's confronting the central bank, and how we will, and most of our researchers are from economics, and financial systems development, so how they will be able to, guide us on the areas that we need to direct research resources to, and towards making sure that we can churn out, strengthen the link of our research work to the policy outcomes based on our challenges.
Oh, well, that's all I wanted to ask you, Deputy Governor. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and I'm sure that has been useful for the audience as well. And you would appreciate that, what we are doing here in terms of building capacity for the region's research policy making institutions. Thank you very much.